Our guest is Bishop Mitchell Rozanski, the newly appointed Roman Catholic Bishop of Springfield and Western Massachusetts. Your Excellency, we're honored to have you here with us. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Jim. It's wonderful to be here with you today.
Let me ask you, first of all, what's your reaction when you get that call from the Vatican that says you're leaving Baltimore, it's your home all your life, the home throughout your priestly life, you're going to Springfield, Massachusetts. Did you know this area at all?
Well, I actually knew a little bit more of Worcester, Mass, because I have some friends from the seminary who studied in Baltimore, and I had kept in contact with them. So I knew a bit about the Diocese of Worcester, and I did not know anything about the Diocese of Springfield. But I received the call from the Papal Nuncio, Archbishop Vigano. He said to me, the Holy Father has appointed you Bishop of Springfield, Massachusetts. And he said, shall I tell the Holy Father that you accept? And of course, a call from that means that some serious consideration has been given to that appointment. And I would have to have a really, really serious excuse to say, well, no, I'll back off on that. But I was really happy to receive that phone call. I had been the auxiliary bishop in Baltimore, Maryland for 10 years and felt with the 3 different archbishops that I had worked with there to be well prepared to come to a diocese and be a leader of a diocese after those 10 years. So I welcomed the Holy Father's appointment and welcomed the move to Springfield.
You've undertaken an effort immediately to visit parishes across the diocese. You started in Berkshire County, and I found that so interesting. Western end of the diocese, western end of the state. And it's an area that really just so often feels forgotten by Boston and even by Springfield in all matters, religious, political, whatever. Did that go into your thought and planning?
Sure, and I found that there's a lot of parallels between the vicariate in which I worked in Maryland, which was the western part of the state, and Western Massachusetts. Demographically, in terms of the industries that had closed down, and in terms of the distance, that people feel that distance of mileage really brings some bit of isolation and maybe even neglect. So I'm called to be bishop of all of Springfield, and I felt it was important to get out to the Berkshires, and I've been out there a couple times since I've been appointed or installed here in Springfield. And it's a beautiful drive out there. It's a beautiful area, and the people have been so welcoming, so I enjoy getting out there. And it's a lot less distance between Springfield and the last parish in Western Massachusetts than it was between Baltimore and the last parish in Western Maryland.
We know on a more serious note, we know that so many faiths, many churches are seeing attendance down, not just the Catholic Church. Society's changing. For the Catholic Church, the trend, I think, maybe has been compounded perhaps by the pain and confusion among the faithful surrounding the abuse scandal of the last decade or so. Mm-hmm. Significant safeguards and rules are in place now, the Charter for Protection of Children and Young People, all to try and prevent any future abuse. But how do you think what happened, the cover-ups that happened in many places, how does that all impact how you now try to lead and teach and evangelize here?
Sure. First of all, I think that we have learned a lot about the sexual abuse crisis, from the sexual abuse crisis, not only as a church, but as a society. We realize just the horrific impact upon someone who has been abused and the lifelong impact. So we want to make sure that it never happens again. And we have those safeguards that are now in place. We have the checks and the balances that are in place so that we can prevent it from happening. But also, as a church, what we have done is we've raised the consciousness of people to look out for signs that could be there, that might alert them to any type of grooming behavior or something that would lead others to think that there's just something not right. And in former days, I think people would just say, well, maybe it's just me thinking that. But now when we raise awareness, people are more apt to speak up and to say something. And I've also really taken great pride in the fact that other organizations have come to the Catholic Church about their own screening programs and about their prevention programs for sexual abuse. So I think we've learned something, and I think that as a church we have a place to teach others. In terms of the church at large, I think if people know that we are doing our best, that we are trying to bring the gospel, then they certainly will be attracted to the message. The gospel message in itself is so beautiful. And in that message, we're able to attract others to it. So I'm very heartened to hear, I met some people here in Springfield who told me I was received into the church at the Easter Vigil a couple years ago, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing in my life that this has happened. So I'm also seeing the other side too. There might be a drop in church attendance, but there are others who are finding in the church a place where they can really find meaning for their lives, find meaning in the Lord Jesus, and also find that within the faith of Catholicism.
In the coming up on 19 months now since he has been elevated to the papacy, Pope Francis, a very open, very humble approach to the position. And and correct me please, because you're the expert here, I'm not, but while I think he really hasn't changed church teaching or doctrine on issues that concern some people, same-sex marriage, the position of women in the church, situation for divorced Catholics, it seems he's changed tone. I'm still struck by him saying, we need open arms rather than a wagging finger. Mm-hmm. How important is all that?
I think it's crucial. I think what Pope Francis is teaching us to do is to take the gospel message, and as he's modeling living out that gospel message in his papacy, he's asking all of us to live out that gospel message in our own lives as witnesses. So the tone is the Lord Jesus, who in his public ministry really walked amongst the people. He encountered people in various situations, various stages of life, and he was able to meet them where they were. But Jesus, as Pope Francis is doing also, is showing us if we really love someone, we don't leave that person just right where they are. And I think Pope Francis' ministry is one of reaching out in love and of saying, the Lord's vision for us is far more than we can even find in our human vision. So let's find that vision together in the Catholic Church. And I think it's really set a wonderful tone for all of us as church leaders and also as members of the Catholic Church.
Is there concern at all? This is a pope who clearly is taking a different approach. Very open, very down to earth, a very humble man. I've read that he often just picks up the phone and calls an old friend or calls someone he's heard has said something interesting. But, and I'm certainly not asking you to criticize any other popes, but is there a sense, and maybe this is media problem to some extent, the way we present him as this kind of jolly fellow, but he's still talking very strictly about what the church believes, what it teaches. Do you worry, as some people, it seems, are attracted back to this open, lovable man, they get there and say, nothing's really different, nothing's changed. The things I didn't like or was upset about or thought were wrong, they're not different. There's a different way and a different approach and openness to talking about them, though. Certainly.
And in Pope Francis' ministry, we find a man who truly lived as a pastor. When he was Archbishop of Buenos Aires, he lived in a little apartment. He cooked for himself. He rode the subway. He was out amongst the people. And he has that pastoral approach. It's a wonderful, wonderful way of approaching people. So many people come up to me and have over the past months and say, I really like your Pope. I really like Pope Francis, whether Catholic or non-Catholic, will say that. And one of the challenges that I've said in different audiences is, do those who really like Pope Francis personally, are they really hearing the message that he's bringing? Because he is bringing a very challenging message. He spoke about the refugees who were killed at Lampedusa in Italy. He actually went to Lampedusa. He was in last November in the All Saints' Day cemetery at Campo Verano when he celebrated Mass. He even brought up at the end of the Mass, let us remember those refugees who died at Lampedusa. So he's challenging us in his words. He's attracting us by his personality, but he's challenging us in his words to really live the gospel message. So Pope Francis is really the total package. He is the man who has a great pastoral sense, but he's also the man who says, I'm not going to leave you right where you are. I'm going to challenge you by this gospel. I'm going to move you along and see if I can bring you closer to Christ by challenging you to be drawn closer to the gospel message.
Bishop Mitchell Rozanski, thanks so much for your time, sir.
Jim, thank you. It's good to be with you.